Durbania. I'm Durbin.
I'm Laura.
And today we're going to read way too much into X-Men Days of Future Past. Why did I say it like that?
I do not know.
It's X-Men Apocalypse Weekend, and then this is going to conclude our reading way too much into the X-Men movies that came before Apocalypse. It's exciting. Yes.
With the new cast.
With this new present young cast.
Yes.
Okay. What did you think of X-Men Days of Future Past?
I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I always feel like time travel is a weird thing to do in a movie.
It is.
Because if time travel happened, wouldn't it just be what it is now?
Right, because if you could go into the past, then it's already in the past that you went to the past. So any changes that you would make are already a part of the original timeline.
Yeah, and so same with the first new Star Trek that came out. It made alternate timelines. It's kind of weird to me, but if you're going for the ride, it's fun.
Yes, well, in a movie, you can't, have time travel make sense, because then you don't have conflict. So, you also can't reboot an entire cast of characters that were senselessly killed off in X-Men 3.
Yeah.
Did I say spoiler alert? Spoiler alert. There we go.
Oops.
I loved it. It is one of my favorite X-Men movies. Like I said in the last one, I didn't really so much like the first batches of X-Men movies, but this batch with this current cast from First Class on through Apocalypse, I've really liked all of those. And Days of Future Past is just awesome. It was so cool to bring the original X-Men characters back.
I do agree with that.
That was cool to bring the original actors and the original cast back, and then it was cool to have them intermingle with this new cast, because then it doesn't feel like, oh, we're rebooting this. It feels like, no, this is just the next movie in line, and it just so happens to erase all the history and create a brand new alternate timeline that somehow Deadpool can exist in, even though he was born during the events of Days of Future
just roll
Past.
with it. Just roll with it.
Yeah, roll with it, because Deadpool was just awesome. So just gotta roll with that. The acting, the drama, and by the drama, I don't mean soap opera drama. I just mean
it was well acted.
well, like that
and
scene
well directed.
where Charles has, and he's putting on, what's that thing called? Cerebro. He's putting on Cerebro, and it doesn't work, and the panel blows up, and he's like, the power's not coming from here. It comes from here, and it's broken. Moments like that were just so good in this movie, and Wolverine, I can't fix you the way you fix your students, but get in my head and look past me and look for you. And then Charles,
they
talked
fix
a lot.
each other.
Yes,
Weird.
I never thought of it like that. They fix each other. So one of the things I see when I read way too much into this movie, it is one of my favorite things to watch Jennifer Lawrence through this movie, her character, Mystique, Raven, trying to figure out who she is. I mean, you even have that one scene in the train scene where she catches Magneto. And it's kind of right there, you see the core of her identity struggle, where Magneto even just poses the question, who are you? Mm-hmm. Are you Charles's Raven? Or Mystique?
How'd that go again?
Mystique. But as I'm looking at this core of this struggle for identity in this movie, who is she? Is she Raven? Is she Mystique? When you get to the very end, my favorite part is where Charles gets in her head because she's got that plastic gun pointed at Trask. Mm-hmm. And he freezes everybody, and he gets in her head, and he's talking to her, and then Hank is saying, shut her down, Charles, shut her down, because Charles has that power. He can just shut her right down, and mutants don't look like the bad guy this day. But I like how Charles got that little half smile on his face, and just shook his head no. And then, speaking back to Raven, he just says, all that happens from here on out is in your hands. And he talks about how he's tried to control her all his life, and look where that's got them. And now he's letting it go. Mm-hmm. The choice is hers. The reason I just love that scene, it's the scene that reminds me of God. Funny thing I know, to talk about some dude who can get in other people's heads and say, hey, that reminds me of God. But the thing that reminds me of God in that scene is where Charles just let go, and he said, look, everything that happens here is in your hands. Mm-hmm. She could have made mutants the enemy that day, but he let her make the free choice. C.S. Lewis once said, free will, yeah, sure, it makes possible all evil and pain and all that stuff, but it's also the only thing that makes any real love or joy worth having possible. And so God gave us free will. I love that scene, because to me I saw a little bit of the character of God, where he's not going to force himself on anybody. He's not going to force his way on anybody. He says, make the decision. And what I really like and what I've discovered in my life is when I've made the decision to have that relationship with him, I've become more myself than any other time. C.S. Lewis has this other great quote in one of his other books where he says, "Overcome me so that overcome I can truly be myself." And it's amazing how when we make that choice, or at least what I've found, when I've made that choice to have that relationship with Jesus, he's really set me free to really truly be who I am. And in a sense, that's how I've kind of found myself. By getting to know God, he's shown me who I am. And so that's what that scene reminds me of in Days of Future Past, where Charles is like, I have faith in you, and the choice is in your hands.
Where I read way too much into this is a quote that older Xavier says to young present Xavier.
Patrick Stewart says to James McAvoy.
Yes.
Yes.
And basically, he says when they're in Wolverine's mind, just because someone struggles, loses their way, doesn't mean that they are lost forever. I attribute that saying to the prodigal son, where basically the son went away, blew all of his fortune, came back to work for his father because he had nothing else, and his father just took him in and made him his son again. And he wasn't lost forever. Even though we make mistakes, because we all have free will and we can do what we want, that Christ loves us and has abounding grace, and that we're not lost forever when we turn back to him.
So this prodigal son picture is kind of like, you got Patrick Stewart, he's like the dad, and you got James McAvoy, he's like the kid that spent all that he had, because, you know, he was taking that serum and...
He gave up.
Yeah, gave up his gifts, gave up his powers, gave up everything, but even though he stumbled and he lost his way, there was future Xavier saying, it's okay. You can do this. If you saw X-Men Days of Future Past, what did you think of the movie? Make sure to let us know in the comments. Also, if you saw X-Men Apocalypse, let us know what you thought of that. You can see what I thought of that. Got my spoiler-free and spoiler talk-up. So if you haven't seen the movie, you can do the spoiler-free. If you have seen it and you want to talk spoilers, you can do the spoiler talk. Yeah, I'm Durbin.
I'm Laura.
Thank you so much for checking out Durbania.